Alright, welcome to this n8n with Google Excel guide, okay? Today we'll discuss all the Google Excel nodes, what they do, how they work, and how to use them. Let's start with the row added trigger, which automates actions when a row is added in n8n, got it? This trigger activates on a specific event, in this case when a new row is created, okay? If we press tab, go to Sheets, select it and go to Triggers, we'll see the trigger type is on row added, right? So when this trigger activates, our workspace, our workflow will start, okay? Here we have the credentials and how often we want it to check for updates. This is important because if we go to our personal space or select it as active, while the server is open, or the project is in the cloud, it'll check every minute or hour if the list or document queue has been updated, okay? Then we'd select which document we want to look at, right? And which list or page within the document. Basically, here we have the settings, right? Open the trigger when a row is added, updated, or both. We can add different options, okay? Like adding a value render, which determines how the value will be displayed in the output, okay? If informed, formatted, or through formulas. Well, that depends on the type of information we're trying to export. For example, if we select formula, Google Sheets has formulas, right? Here it means the value won't be calculated, but the result will be the formula itself. Or if it's formatted, the values will be formatted and calculated based on the cell's formatting, okay? Based on the cell itself, basically. Then we also have the data location on sheet option, alright? This is to define the range where we'll check for row updates or additions, okay? We'd put the range here if we want to limit it. And finally, the date time render, okay? This is where we determine how dates should be displayed, alright? We can choose a serial number or the formatted date itself, okay? And that's it. We've now covered the Google Sheets trigger completely. How can we update processes in 8n when a Google Sheets table is updated? This is basically in trigger format and normal format, mainly in trigger format, as it ultimately executes a workspace. We can update the table, but it's not the same as constantly checking for updates. Here's our trigger, okay? We select our credentials and set how often to check, like every hour, right? We can also set the minutes if we want. We can add a pull time to check at a specific hour. For documents, we'd select from the list, choose the page, and it says trigger runs when a row updates. Include in the output the new version, old version, or both. What does this refer to? Basically, it says this option is only effective when the workflow runs automatically. Got it? This is useful if we want different info in the output, like both old and new versions. If we only want the updated table's new version, we choose that, right? This depends on how we want to extract variables from Google Sheets. Then we have two options, columns to watch, which lets us choose from a list or use IDs. The expressions section explains more about parameters, writing expressions, and webhook. This would include a bit more programming. It specifies which columns to examine, right? If we want to look at just one column, we check the email, link, or message column, okay? This way we'd limit the number of columns we're examining. Then we have the data location and sheet, which defines a range. We specify which rows to analyze, focusing on that range instead of the whole sheet we might not need. So with this, we've properly configured this trigger. Alright, how can we automate any changes in our Google Sheets? For that, we have the Google Sheets Any Updates trigger, okay? It activates when any change occurs in our Google Sheet, like adding, updating, or deleting rows or columns, okay? So it covers all types of events, and this is the setup we have here, okay? For parameters, we have a mode to add poll time, which checks every minute or custom interval, okay? That is a specific timer, okay? Then we can select, like in all Google Sheets triggers and nodes, a document and page, and the trigger is when a row is added or updated, right? In the output, we can choose if we want to extract variables from the new version or the old one. When updating or getting new info, it's normal to use the new version or both, okay? Then we have options to configure which columns we want to view. Maybe we only want to see columns A, B, and C, email, link, and subject, right? For example, lastly, we have data location on sheet to limit where we check for new Google Sheets data. So that covers all the triggers we needed to explain.